This is CBC Compass.
This is Wednesday, March 11th. Here's what's happening now on Prince Edward Island. The World Health Organization has now declared the coronavirus outbreak a global pandemic. And today, PEI opened its first clinic for testing in Charlottetown. Full details ahead. PEI's tourism industry could be hit hard by COVID-19 as people change their travel plans and avoid cruise ships, but there's still no official plan in place for Canadian ports of call, including Charlottetown. New transitional housing project is being planned for PEI. It will be built by the Native Council and it will be geared toward the Indigenous community. Details for you ahead. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight on Compass. I'm Louise Martin. Well, the World Health Organization officially declared the coronavirus outbreak a pandemic today. Now, that doesn't mean the virus is getting worse, but that its spread is across the world. It comes as PEI opens its first clinic for coronavirus testing in Charlottetown. A second clinic will open in Summerside tomorrow. So here's what you need to know. To access the clinic, Islanders should call 811. They will be assessed for symptoms to see if they do in fact need to be tested. Anyone who has returned from traveling within the last 2 weeks that has symptoms of a fever, cough, or shortness of breath should be tested. People who need a test will get a call from the clinic within 24 hours of calling 811 to arrange an appointment.
And the whole purpose of these clinics is to try to keep those who don't have significant symptoms, who really have mild illness, out of going to the emergency department for testing. And so I think this kind of setup is being done in different parts of the country as we try to manage the expected increase in cases and really the advice to travelers from anywhere if they're traveling outside the country when they return.
There is also a new 1-800 number for Islanders to call if they have any questions about the virus. So this isn't to book an appointment or to be screened. This is if you have any questions. That number is 1-800-958-6400. And coming up, the Chief Public Health Officer will be answering some of your questions about COVID-19. My full conversation with Dr. Heather Morrison is a little bit later on. Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a $1 billion fund to deal with the spread of COVID-19. Half of the money will go to the provinces and territories. We told you yesterday this was something PEI Premier Dennis King was hoping for. There's also funding for research, medical supplies, and education efforts, as well as support for workers and employers.
Let me be clear. No one should have to worry about their job if they have to be quarantined. No employer should feel like they have to lay off a worker because of the virus. We can support you, and we will.
The government is waiving the waiting period for employment insurance for those affected. It's also looking at additional measures, including income support for people who are not eligible for EI sickness benefits. And we'll have more on this story for you later in the show. Well, there are, of course, deep concerns about what COVID-19 could mean for tourism this year on PEI, especially for the cruise ship season. Federal and provincial health authorities are recommending Canadians avoid all cruise ship travel, but there's still no official plan in place to prevent the spread of coronavirus from cruise ships to Canadian ports of call, including Charlottetown. Carrie Campbell has that story.
This shop is busy making product for the coming tourism season. They spend thousands to advertise inside cruise ships, bringing passengers right to their door. This season, though, they're not sure what to expect.
There's that possibility, yes, that we will not see as many people. Will some cruise ships cancel because they cannot fill their ships? That's a big thing, too.
There are two potentially competing interests at play for Charlottetown and other Canadian cruise ship destinations this year. The potential economic impact if ships and passengers stay away, the potential for spreading coronavirus if they come.
We're concerned because we certainly don't want a situation where we have a lot of potentially people who are sick getting on and off here in Charlottetown.
The Public Health Agency of Canada says it can inspect cruise ships in Canadian waters and put them under quarantine if there's a risk to public health. In an email to CBC, the agency said as the situation evolves, many countries are implementing policies and restrictions to contain the outbreak. The Government of Canada is also planning for all possible scenarios regarding cruise ships coming to Canadian ports in light of risks associated with COVID-19. The Charlottetown Port Authority has billed this season as its biggest ever, 97 ships with the potential to carry 150,000 passengers. The port says it's working on a plan given concerns about coronavirus and won't say anything more until it has more answers. PEI's tourism minister says if Canadians decide to travel closer to home this tourism season, that's the best scenario for PEI.
About 87% of our marketing budget is through Canada, Ontario, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec. So it's where most of our money's at now anyway. So I think it's going to help us in the long run.
And the worst case scenario?
People could not travel at all, and it's definitely going to be devastating for the province. Our tourism is one of our main industries.
The questions about cruise ship traffic also apply to PEI's tourism as a whole. What economic impact will it have if people stay away? What potential risks to public health could it pose if they come? And how do you balance those two interests? No concrete answers yet from any level of government. The first 2 cruise ships are set to arrive 7 weeks from today. Kerry Campbell, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Some PEI church leaders are taking extra precautions against the virus, including the Reverend at Trinity United Church. She says the fear of spreading germs is on the minds of churchgoers and is taking steps to try to keep the congregation there healthy.
And about 3 weeks ago, because there was so many people around with colds, flus, pneumonia, before we even had this most recent scare, I told the congregation that for some time we would not be shaking hands. I would still greet at the door, warm welcome, bump shoulders, bump elbows, something like that, because we were afraid of spreading germs.
St. Pius X Church has added some more hand sanitizer, and the Diocese of Charlottetown says in a letter it will recommend avoiding handshaking. Catholic churches are also being asked to empty their holy water. Well, Jay's here now with our first look at the weather and a little bit of sunshine coming back for tomorrow.
Yes,
some bright news on the horizon.
Some bright news. We will see that sunshine gradually returning through the day. Actually, by the late afternoon, very sunny skies across the island can be expected now. Some cooler temperatures in the morning and some very light flurries possible. So still a very winter-like start to your Thursday, but a much nicer wrap later in the day. And the flurries won't amount to too much in terms of the wind chill. Early morning might feel low to mid-minus teens. So it will be quite a biting wind chill, but winds will not be overly gusty, so it could be a lot worse. Temperatures this hour between -3 to -4. They have been falling through the day. We are looking at wind chill values between -7 and -12 across the island. The winds are not overly gusty, and actually through the evening hours, they'll actually become a little bit lighter and a bit more variable into the overnight hours tonight. We are looking at, just some cloud cover continuing to build in across the Maritimes. Through the overnight hours tonight, we will watch for not just cloud cover, but maybe some flurry activity to develop. Light flurries could linger into the early morning hours tomorrow. Then we'll watch for a mostly cloudy sky by about the noon hour. As we head towards the mid to late afternoon, that sky will continue to clear up, and then we are looking at a mostly clear sky late afternoon and into the evening hours. And that means a lot of sunshine until about 7:15 when that sun does set, as we do like that sunshine a little bit later in the day. I'm still celebrating that. All right, here's a look at our 24-hour outlook for you. And as you can see, just some light flurries tonight into tomorrow morning before that clearing trend starts. Again, with temperatures between -7 and -9 early in the morning. May feel -13 to -15. Winds not overly brisk. Temperatures still a bit cool, but that sunshine does return for your Thursday afternoon. Louise?
Thanks, Jay. The Native Council of PEI says there is a need for vulnerable members in its community to have a place to go. So it's planning to build a 20-unit housing project for its members. Travis Kingdon has been following this story for us today and has details.
Louise, after looking into housing in their community over the last number of years, the Native Council of PEI says it's found a number of its off-reserve members are struggling with homelessness. So it plans to build a 20-unit facility to deal with those issues. The transitional housing will be specially designed for members of PEI's Indigenous community, with a focus on programs to support their members in addition to the 20 beds.
I think we have currently over 30 people that are in homeless situations. And we don't want to just create housing. We want to make sure that the members that are coming into these housing, they're getting cultural health and healing and teachings, and also look at creating confidence in these members.
The cultural programs are important for the council because while other supports exist on PEI, the council says it's important members of their community have their own place to go.
And when it's done by your own community, then you feel safer. And that's what it's about, is having cultural access to programs and services that they're not having right now.
Louise, the council got $50,000 from the province to get the project underway. It's going to use that money to hire an architect to help design the facility and says it's working on buying land for the project. Once those steps are done, it will apply for more funding to get construction started.
Travis Kingdon reporting for us tonight. The Bioscience Technology program at Holland College is getting ready to expand this fall, and it's brought in a new piece of high-tech lab equipment to help. Nancy Russell has the story.
This is the newest piece of equipment here in the bioscience labs at Holland College. It will allow students to study things like cancer cells in ways they couldn't before. The Biotech Citation 5 cost more than $160,000, a big portion of that from the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council.
We use applications for funding to constantly bring new equipment, current equipment into the lab, so our students are getting trained on what's actually happening now in the workplace.
Gibson says the Bioscience Technology program has been growing steadily since it started at Holland College 15 years ago, as the industry has also continued to grow on Prince Edward Island. And the new technology will help his students dive deeper into their research.
The students are quite often looking at cancer cell lines, looking at possible natural extracts that might have an impact on cancer behavior. And this instrument is really customly designed for doing both the quantitative and qualitative analysis.
Tom Ho is the first student to complete a project on the new system. He's a third-year student from UPEI, part of the combined program between the university and Holland College.
I was really excited to see how it is capable to do things like capture image.
And it worked beautifully, and the instrument showed just how it's going to enhance student research projects.
Gibson says the new equipment is also important because the bioscience program is about to expand, with more third-year UPEI students joining the second-year college students.
So that when we have twice as many students here, we can maintain that student to equipment ratio.
Gibson says the bioscience program is set to take between 10 and 15 more students from UPEI starting in September. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Charlottetown.
There's much more still to come on Compass tonight before 7 o'clock. Coming up ahead, your coronavirus questions for PEI's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Heather Morrison. We'll also have more about the WHO and why it declared COVID-19 a global pandemic today, and also more on Ottawa's $1 billion coronavirus response fund. That's all ahead. As we go to break, a live look outside on this Wednesday evening. We're back after the break. Time to talk weather, and we mentioned it earlier. Some sun on the way.
Yeah.
Sunshine.
It's nice.
I know.
It was
Welcome back.
mild. I will say this, at least it was mild this morning. I know it was a little icier up west, and we saw the Westhoff family of schools delayed by an hour today.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a bad start to the day, but it did start to tick down, that temperature through the day
it did.
today.
Yeah.
And the wind chill started to tick up. So we are looking at an improvement in terms of the conditions tomorrow, but the temperatures are going to still be a little cool for this time of year.
All right, gotcha.
All right, there's barely a spring on PEI, but we have a lovely fall in exchange. That's the trade-off. We have this beautiful, long, well, most years, gorgeous fall. But the spring, it kind of just goes from a winter light right into beach season as we get from May into June. There we go, is our live shot. Love seeing that daylight as we look out over Charlottetown. You can see the, there's, of course, St. Dunstan's, and we've got the Holman. Oh, it's just nice to be able to actually see some light in our live shot. All right, let's take a look now at temperatures across the Maritimes. I'm still giddy about the fact that the sun doesn't set until after I get off work. Temperatures a little bit cool across the Maritimes, a little warmer as we look back into parts of southern New Brunswick, but for the most part, back below the freezing mark by more than just a few degrees as we look to Charlottetown, -1 in Halifax, -1 as we look over to Cape Breton, as we look over to Sydney. Zooming in on the island, those temperatures sitting between -3 and -4. We started out around or above the freezing mark this morning, so that shift in wind direction in the wake of that cold front did indeed usher in much cooler air. Luckily, the winds will be easing over the next few hours, and that wind chill will not be quite as potent as it could be if we had a more robust wind out of the north through the overnight hours tonight into early tomorrow morning. Wind chill values, where the winds are lighter, -5, -6. Bit breezier as we look out towards our East Point reporting station. -12 is the wind chill there. Actually, calm winds at the moment being reported at North Cape and fairly light into Summerside as well. Here's a look at the satellite and the radar picture. Just cloud cover at the moment. You may see a little bit of clear sky breaking through, but it's a mostly cloudy evening. Clouds will continue to increase as we get into the overnight hours tonight and late into the overnight hours, more so early tomorrow morning. We do have the risk of very light flurries settling in. So you might wake up tomorrow morning and see a few flakes falling. It will not amount to too much. Winds will not be overly gusty. They'll be quite variable through the early morning hours, 10 to 15 kilometers per hour. We'll make temperatures between -7 and -9. Feel more like -13 to -15. So a bit of a biting wind chill for the kids making their way out to the bus stop tomorrow or walking to school. So keep that in mind. Ridge of high pressure is moving in, though. That clears up the sky quite quickly through the afternoon. By late afternoon, we are looking at very sunny conditions across the island. Sky will stay clear into tomorrow night through Friday morning. The clouds will start to build in by about mid-morning. And we do have a storm system. This is a potent one. It's tracking well to our north and west, though. But we do deal with the frontal system associated with this low pressure center. And what that will see is as we get into, now this could be 10 to 30 centimeters of snow for northern New Brunswick, icy mix for more central areas. We will likely see a little bit of mixing developing Friday evening, but then it switches over to rain through the overnight hours into early Saturday morning with a big push of strong southerly winds and warmer temperatures. So not a lot of shoveling, not much mixing for us here on PEI with the current track, mostly a rain event. Keep tabs on that with an update tomorrow. Chilly tonight. Temperature's still quite cool tomorrow, but it's a clearing trend through the afternoon, so some sunshine will at least help. Similar story for central and eastern PEI. Flurries tonight into early morning, then clearing. Temperatures still below seasonal. Now, we do get into warmer temperatures, more so Friday night, +5, but it will be windy with a mix changing to rain, clearing out as flurries early Saturday, still quite windy, and cooler temperatures as we look Sunday into the early part of next week for your Monday. All right, let's take a look now quickly at your national temperatures as we take a look at that map across the country. There you have it. All right, and now this photo coming to us from Tim Gallant. Beautiful sunrise at North Rustico Beach, one of my favorite walking spots. Love walking along that beach up along the North Shore. Thank you for sending that one in, Tim. Get us your photos. Best way to do that for us to show them off for you here on Compass is by email, compass@cbc.ca.
Thank you, Jay. Well, we've just learned New Brunswick now has its first confirmed case of coronavirus. Coming up, your questions answered about COVID-19. PEI's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Heather Morrison, will be here to answer the questions that you've sent in over the past couple of days. Tune in for her answers right here on Compass.
I'm Mitch Cormier. Coming up Thursday Island Morning, we have the provincial bird, tree, tartan, and soon lichen. We'll tell you about the search for a provincial lichen on the next Island Morning.
It is your turn to ask the doctor. PEI's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Heather Morrison, is my guest tonight, and we are very grateful for your time.
Hi, Louise.
So these are questions that we got from Islanders. So today, the World Health Organization declared this a global pandemic. What does this mean exactly, and how does it change anything?
Well, I think it recognizes that this has very global spread, and it has the virus has now touched so many countries all over the world. But the Director General of the WHO was very clear during the announcement today that it does not change the fact that we are trying to contain this virus, and that he, cited example of where they have done really good job in containing the virus, it has made a difference. And we would want to continue that approach in Canada, certainly, not that we're not continuing to prepare and look ahead, but certainly early identification and testing and isolation and all those things related to a case are still very important so that those who are most vulnerable, for instance, are elderly, immunocompromised, will minimize the illness and serious illness in those folks.
So a pandemic doesn't mean that it's getting more severe?
No, the pandemic hasn't changed the virus itself.
Okay. Still no confirmed cases here on PEI. How likely is it we will see one within the next few weeks?
I think it's quite likely, and I think the numbers will continue to grow exponentially in the country. I think some of the measures we're putting in place to try to increase testing rate across the country will identify cases, but it will also help identify them early enough and limit the spread. But we certainly would expect cases in the next couple of weeks in PEI. It would not surprise me.
What is the risk now considered to Canadians, to Islanders?
Well, I think it depends on which category. So certainly the risk of serious illness is higher for those who are over 65 and those with immunocompromising illnesses underlying. And it's certainly the risk of an outbreak in Canada is higher, but when you think about the general population, the risk of community transmission is still low at this point in time.
At this point. What are the signs of the virus versus flu symptoms?
It's a really good question because they have very similar symptoms. There's some, and we're going to continue to learn more, certainly going forward, but some of the information is that the COVID-19 has some mild symptoms, and and then we talk about 80% at least of people having mild symptoms, and but yet at the same time, some of the more significant symptoms with COVID are maybe a little bit longer fever, more of a dry cough, not so much a head cold. And influenza tends to hit people very suddenly, and so with some people having mild symptoms, they may not recognize it. It may not be quite the same. But again, it's difficult to determine exactly those symptoms, and everyone has such a range of those symptoms when they get sick.
Do we know why it is that young people aren't showing as severe symptoms?
I don't think they know for sure, but certainly the disease has not impacted children in the same way. And when they have been affected, it's much more mild illness. And certainly, I think as of yesterday, there weren't any children that had tested positive in this country.
What is the protocol when you get back from international travel and you work in healthcare or long-term care?
It's a great question. So we're at this point in time saying that if you return from travel, you go back to work, and even if you're a healthcare worker, you go back to work. But healthcare workers in particular need to be very vigilant about the first signs of them not feeling well. And as soon as they start getting symptoms, they'll be usually in a location where they can put a mask on and go home and self-isolate, and then they'll be considered certainly for testing.
All right. How long does the virus live on surfaces?
So again, these are great questions. So they think from a few hours to up to a few days. So there's
That's
a range.
significant, yeah.
Yes. So that's why the whole hand washing is so important. And we've talked about it that it's spread by droplets. So if people cough, usually that is around 4 or 5 feet. So that's why that distance we talk about.
Far.
It can go far. So we talk about that 2 meters or 6 feet distance when you're talking, to someone, and how important it is to wash your hands and not touch your face.
The face touching, that's a big one, right?
It's so easy to do, and so really good hand washing, not touching your face, and making sure you stay away from people who are particularly vulnerable. If you're going to, especially if you've returned from travel, that's one of the things we've been saying, again, across the country. Avoid visiting places that may have a large number of older people.
All right, we have some more questions to get to, but we're going to take a quick break first, so stay with us. Welcome back. We're going to get to more questions right away here. Dr. Morrison, thank you for being our guest. Okay, this was a question from my inbox. How can PEI possibly allow cruise ships to dock here when the healthcare system is barely able to care for sick people now without a single case yet of coronavirus?
So the whole cruise ship is a real discussion, certainly not just here, but in many parts of the country. For islanders, we've advised certainly reconsider any cruise travel. And for cruise ships, I would anticipate there'll be a federal announcement on any arrival of cruise ships, of course, to the ports in Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, Quebec, and also in BC. So that will be a decision that...
A federal decision.
Federal decision, and certainly lots of discussion ongoing. Recognizing that it is, of course, an impact to business and to our community if those cruise ships are not coming in. But we balancing both of those things are very important.
Yeah. So on that cruise ship angle, someone asked about, we've been told to stay off cruise ships. What about crowded airplanes? Do you recommend staying out of airplanes as well?
So it's a really, airplanes are tough because you are in close contact. You can't keep that social distancing in the same way. If you're healthy and make sure you're doing all those precautions, washing your hands, really, really key if you're flying and on an airplane. I think when they look at the contact tracing of people who've maybe been cases, the majority of the cases that are positive are with close contacts that weren't on the plane, but were family members and close contacts in that way. So it's that's also giving us some evidence of where the risk areas are.
Right. So then if you're traveling, say maybe without your children, and you go away and you come back and you discover you maybe have some symptoms, should everyone in the house self-isolate?
Well, so if you have symptoms, absolutely self-isolate and go through the process we talked about earlier in terms of getting tested. And if possible, keep some distance in the house. So maybe, although it would be really hard not to lie with if you're sick, don't lie with your children to put them to bed. Try not to share cutlery and those kind of things, especially until you get tested and the results come back. There are some information sheets on self-isolation, and so we have some guidance around what we can do to minimize those situations.
So if you're then tested and it comes back positive, then does your family have to self-isolate as well or quarantine for a couple of weeks?
I mean, those would be considered close contacts, and then we'd be having discussion about are they symptomatic, and they would be isolated and then
go through the same process of being tested.
Yes.
Okay.
And they would not be going to, because they would be considered close contacts of a case. And that's where our numbers and start to increase.
What precautions should those with compromised immune systems and chronic illnesses like Crohn's disease be taking?
So really, people over 65 and those with underlying health conditions, I would avoid international travel.
Okay.
At this point in time.
So that's the advice, right?
I mean, I think where possible. And just because of the increased risk. But if you're traveling, but even on a daily basis, with the circulating viruses that we have, the focus on importance of hand washing and maybe avoiding some of those mass gatherings that we talk about, where you have a huge number of people in a space that you can't easily remove yourself from. So those would be maybe areas to avoid for right now.
That was my next question. What is considered a large gathering? So that is a place where you can't easily get out of? Is that?
Yeah, so it would be a large sporting event, a large concert.
But a school is not considered?
School and workplaces are not considered mass gatherings. And it's really where you can't sort of remove yourself to isolate in a timely way necessarily. And but we're getting questions about that, and some of it's a risk assessment too.
And it could evolve, I guess, depending on how many cases pop up here, right?
Absolutely. And so the guidance we're giving today is not the same as we talked about a month ago.
Yeah, I know, it changes so fast.
It's an evolving situation for sure.
Now, before I let you go, I know there's a new phone number that you want to let Islanders know about.
Yes, it's a 1-800 number that in our office just for information. It's not to arrange testing. It's but certainly it's for us to help manage some of the calls and be able to redirect some information to people who have questions on a variety of topics, some of which we've covered here. So they'll be asked to leave a message, and we'll get back to them. Someone in my office will get back to them.
Okay, I really appreciate your time. I know there's many more questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get to yours, but again, you can call that number and leave a message, and those questions will be answered.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morrison. All right, we are completely changing gears now to something we all love to talk about, and that is the Easter Seals School Tour on PEI. Believe it or not, it's nearly time for the new ambassador to start hitting the road for the annual event, and boy, is she ready. Here's Jay and Veda with the details.
Oh, Louise, it is a very exciting day here at our Compass studios because I've had a chance to meet some great Easter Seals ambassadors and the two Easter Seals campaigns I've been happy to be a part of here through Compass, Braden and Ty. And now we get to introduce you to...
Veda.
All right, Veda. And Veda, I should ask, because you have some of your friends here, should I say loyal subjects? Because I hear I might be speaking to royalty right now.
No.
No? Okay. Can I ask you why I said loyal subjects? You have a nickname of sorts, right?
My full name is Veda Zoe Matheson.
Okay, but also known as Princess Veda, I hear?
Yes. Once Edna Reed, the girl who works for Easter Seals, once she saw me, she noticed that I had these pearls on my neck.
And she thought you looked very regal?
Yes, she was like, oh my, this is some fancy looking girl.
I agree as well. That is a very, very, very regal looking set of pearls you have there. And I love the Easter Seals Ambassador blazer. It looks fantastic. I've never interviewed a princess before, so I'm a little nervous right now. Can you introduce me to your friends?
This one is Carissa.
Okay.
This one is Zadie.
All right.
And this one is Mia.
All right. And you guys all go to what school?
West Kent.
West Kent Elementary. All right, and you have been part of this, of course, is a warm welcome for you when you come visit the school and visit the schools across the island. The school tour is kicking off in April, but the other part of it is fundraising, and you guys have had some theme days, right? Can you tell me about the themes?
We had Pink Shirt Day.
Okay, and?
Pajama Day.
Pajama Day. I hear there was one about hair as well, right?
Red, white, blue and yellow shirt.
Okay, all right. That's for French Week, the Acadian flag. All right. And was there a Crazy Hair, Crazy Hat Day as well?
Crazy Hair and Crazy Hat Day.
Do I qualify for Crazy Hair?
No.
Oh, thank you. I take that as a compliment. All right. So raising some funds through the theme days, the challenges. This is what schools across the island will be doing in advance of the school tour. But the last stop traditionally is the home school. Yes. Is there anything special planned?
Oh, we have a few special things. Surprises, mind you, but yes, lots of special things planned.
Well, this is West Kent's principal, by the way, Miss Ellsworth. I should have said that off the top. We can't say what the special things are, though, can we?
I'm sorry. No, we're not revealing ahead of time.
Spoiler alert. We don't want to ruin the surprise for Veda when she arrives to wrap up the school tour. So the school tour kicks off after March break in April, right?
Yes.
Are you very excited?
Yes.
All right. And part of this, of course, is raising funds. So if you'd like to help out with the Easter Seals campaign this year, you can do that by going to eastersealspei.org. And you have a special saying you're going to be saying a whole bunch in the coming weeks. Do you want to try it out on Compass? Your special phrase? Be different?
Oh, be different. Be different and follow your heart.
Oh, those are perfect words. You did a great job. Can I get a big high five? Awesome. Full details on how you can help out, eastersealspei.org. That was great.
Awesome job, Jay and Veda. Very awesome job. You'll be a great ambassador. Now, if you want to be in our community segment, get in touch with us at CBC PEI 629-6480, or you can email compass@cbc.ca. Well, we told you earlier, the World Health Organization officially declared the coronavirus outbreak a pandemic today. There are about 4,300 deaths and 120,000 people infected in at least 114 countries.
We're deeply concerned both by the alarming levels of spread and severity and by the alarming levels of inaction. We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
And another sign of just how dire the situation can become, in Italy, more drastic measures to contain the virus spread. All stores in the country were ordered closed, except groceries and pharmacies, after the number of deaths and new cases surged once again. Now, here in Canada, the number of cases remains relatively low, but New Brunswick, as we mentioned earlier, reported its first case today, and the Canadian total has now surpassed 100. Along with that increase, fears are rising as well. Simon Dingley has more.
The World Health Organization may have declared a pandemic, but says the planet can still change its course.
We have called every day for countries to take urgent and aggressive action. We have rung the alarm bell loud and clear.
Pandemics are declared when there's community spread of a new disease that's seen around the world, and it appears to be happening now here in Canada. Last week, a Sudbury, Ontario man in his 50s attended this Toronto mining conference. A few days later, he fell ill, coughing and short of breath. Doctors confirm he contracted the coronavirus. There were about 25,000 people at that conference.
Our recommendation right now is certainly to consider attendance at this conference as a potential risk of exposure.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford was at the same event. So was the Prime Minister. Today, Justin Trudeau said he hasn't been tested, but says he is following health regulations to prevent the spread of the disease. The Sudbury case prompted Laurentian University to suspend all classes on campus, moving them online. Another new concern in Hamilton, Ontario. A radiologist has also been confirmed to have the disease. That sparked worries about the people she treated before being diagnosed and going into isolation.
They're cancer patients, and we all know that they're a particularly vulnerable group of patients.
Italy remains Europe's most vulnerable nation and under lockdown. Today, police in Rome began stopping and checking people in cars to make sure they have a valid reason to travel. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Angela Merkel worries the situation is about to get worse, much worse. She predicts up to 70% of Germany's population will be infected. In Washington state, where there have been more than 24 coronavirus deaths and almost 300 confirmed cases, an extreme move today to contain the spread.
I am ordering, pursuant to my emergency powers, that certain events in King, Snohomish, and Pierce County with more than 250 people are prohibited.
And that includes sports fans. They won't be allowed in San Francisco's Chase Arena tomorrow night when the Golden State Warriors play. And baseball's Seattle Mariners are moving 7 games out of Washington State at the end of the month. Simon Dingley, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, as we told you earlier, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced his plan today to address the COVID-19 pandemic. It includes money for the provinces and territories and for the healthcare system, and help for businesses and people to get them through the crisis. Julie Van Dusen has more on that part of the story.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been hinting at this aid package for several days. He arrived at the news conference flanked by key cabinet ministers and Theresa Tam, the head of Canada's Public Health Agency.
I know that people are worried about what they're seeing on the nightly news and what it means for their community. We get it, and we're on it.
The Trudeau government is putting $1 billion into fighting this pandemic immediately. $500 million of that to support provinces and territories for measures including testing and equipment. $275 million for antiviral and vaccine development. That's on top of $27 million just announced. $50 million for personal protective equipment, including surgical masks and isolation gowns. and the rest goes towards Canada's public health response, Indigenous services, and help for workers and businesses. Those workers who must be quarantined will be able to tap into EI benefits right away. The government is waiving the 1-week waiting period. The government says it will explore how to support workers who aren't eligible for EI. Businesses, including the airline industry, are getting hammered. Tourism is taking a hit too, as the disease ripples through the economy.
But we stand prepared with multiple measures in order to support businesses and to support people should the challenge be greater than it is today.
It's clear fighting the pandemic will be costly. The Conservatives say finances are already stretched thanks to Liberal spending.
We go into this crisis with a $27 billion deficit and an economy that had already ground to a halt.
The government says today's announcement could be just the beginning, with forecasts indicating that 30 to 70% of Canadians may become infected with COVID-19. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
A New York judge has formally declared ex-movie mogul Harvey Weinstein a sex offender and sentenced him to 23 years in prison. Some call it justice and a new day for women, but Weinstein's lawyer calls his trial unfair and the sentence obscene.
It's ridiculous. Harvey feels terrible. Of course he does. This is not an easy day.
For the predators who are going to wake up in fear tomorrow and say, are they coming after me next? My answer is probably yes.
2 women read victim impact statements prior to the sentencing and then greeted the ruling with smiles and raised fists. They are among dozens of accusers who started going public in 2017. Weinstein also spoke in court today, saying he's confused by what happened. Insiders in the Hollywood film business have since admitted they knew about what they called Weinstein's dreadful behavior, but did nothing. The now 67-year-old will be taken to prison, but his legal team is filing an appeal. He is yet to face another trial in California on still more charges. There's a looming labor shortage in Canada's marine shipping industry, and it could affect 90% of the items we buy, wear, and use. Now, industry experts are working with training centers to fix that shortage. CBC's Brett Ruskin visited a center where students can see their futures on the sea.
Without this industry, you wouldn't get your breakfast cereal in the morning.
From cereal to supercomputers, it's all shipped in boats like these. But the workforce aboard these ships is aging. 20% of workers are expected to retire in the next 5 years, and some deliveries have already been delayed with no crew to move the ships.
We have this huge gap of people now that have decided that they're going to retire, and we just can't fill that gap now.
Captain Gary O'Donnell is a pilot. He helps ships navigate ports. So are you retiring soon yourself?
I'm retiring from Halifax as a Halifax pilot in next year.
You're kind of part of the problem, right?
I guess you could say that.
The solution could be here, Cape Breton Island at the Nova Scotia Community College's Nautical Institute. These students are seafarers in training, in the pool and at the helm of a virtual ship.
And it has everything in here that we can practice without breaking anything, so we know what we're doing when we actually go on the boat.
Companies are so eager that one already offered him a lucrative job and agreed to pay the rest of his tuition.
Most of our students, they are chosen after first year, and the industry, they want these students to work with them for the rest of their lives.
For women or Indigenous students, the federal government offers $5,000 towards tuition.
It definitely showed in numbers this year. We had like 10 girls to start with in the class, and they've never had that before for marine engineering. Usually it's like 1 or 2, maybe 3.
Well-paying jobs, high demand, and offers of free training. Still, experts say the marine industry simply isn't top of mind for high school graduates.
And there's less people interested in going into it at the front end, often just because they don't know about it.
And so industry officials and the school are trying to get the word out there that there are opportunities available in the marine industry. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
Okay, so the declaration of a pandemic certainly didn't help the markets today. The Canadian dollar lower on the day, 72.75 cents US. The TSX now officially in bear territory. So this is a bear market we're in now, down 688 points. So what is a bear market? It's really defined as a loss of 20% from a recent high. So we're down 20.6% of the record high that the TSX has seen. The Dow Jones also in bear market territory, off by over 1,400 points just on today's trading session. Taking a look at the price of oil, which has been impacted by this as well. That was down $1.38 US a barrel today. So the price of oil at $32.98 US a barrel. Of course, that's causing much concern economically for the province of Alberta. And we did see the price of gold even slip today, often seen as a safe haven in times of turmoil, but it was down as well, off $18 US an ounce. Well, it's one way to get children interested in washing their hands. So that's a robot's voice telling these students in Taiwan that washing your hands is super. The elementary students helped design the dispenser, which uses an ultrasonic sensor and Lego pieces to spray disinfectant. And from the students' faces, you know, testing out the project is certainly not a chore. They look like they're having some fun there.
That is awesome.
May as well make it entertaining. I remember, though, and I think it should be part of the school curriculum, my child in elementary school was taught how to properly wash her hands and came home and showed me what she learned and still has those hand washing habits to this day, and she's in grade 7 now. So there is something, start young.
Yeah.
Teach people how to wash their hands at an early age.
Great engineering there, and also a great public service.
Yeah.
Those students are now learning the importance of hand washing. You know, my Kate, my wife, is a teacher, and they're doing it. I saw it the other day. I was visiting West Royalty. They had it up on the wall, the bread test, where they have you touch a piece of bread to your Chromebook, to your phone, to your hands before you wash, after you wash, and you put those pieces of bread in bags, and you watch how quickly the mold starts to form from the ones where you washed to the ones where you didn't, and it really hits home.
Oh yeah, that's kind of a gross.
It is a very gross one.
Effective. Project. All right.
Gotta wash those hands. All right, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, likely going to see some light flurry activity in places. It'll be scattered in nature. More importantly, the -8 will feel more like -13, -14 with the wind chill. Temperatures will not improve that much into the afternoon, still below seasonal, but the conditions will.
love that sunshine returning.
Love the sunshine, and we'll see you tomorrow, sunshine. Good night, PEI.